Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello, hello, yes.
Hello, hello, how you doing?
Good. Feeling for Goodfellow and his 4 hour driving lesson that he was saying, which is the reason he can't be here today. Which shocks
Right,
it was really shocking you in
this
the chat earlier.
this was absolutely ridiculous and bonkers to me today because we're talking about when can we record the show and Kyle was like,
Yeah.
oh, busy, I can't really do tomorrow because I'm at driving school. And I was like, what? And then it turns out he gets given in Spain, he gets given driving
Yeah, I know.
lectures as well as
So
obviously
both of
one-to-one
us.
time. And it's like a full
That's worse.
4 hour session. And he has to do this throughout multiple weeks. And then he has to, book months at a time his exams and stuff for it. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is so overcomplicated. Far too much stuff you need to do to just
It's
learn how to
just
drive a car.
it's
Like
just the
for Kyle,
Spanish.
what did we do? We just had an instructor. You do a
We
bunch
had
of lessons, then you go and sit your theory test because you have an app to quiz you.
I
That's it.
remember having the app on the
Yeah.
phone, you just kept kind of going through it multiple times. But anyway, he
Oh,
can't be here
it
today.
was
R.I.P.
he can't be here because he's basically in prison in my eyes. So anyway, on
Yeah.
today's episode, me and Kyle are going to do our Quiet Place series overview. We have just seen A Quiet Place Day One at the weekend there, so we're going to review A Quiet Place Day One and plus look at the other two films and see what we kind of think of this franchise overall. But also, I will start off with a review for Kinds of Kindness, the new Yorgos Lanthimos film, and I have managed to watch all of The Bear season 3 this over the past weekend. So I will be doing a
Shocking.
spoiler-free review for that at the end of the show as well, just to kind of. I want to talk about it. I want to see
Yeah.
why. I want to know why people are annoyed about it, but we'll get into that too. So let's start with Kinds of Kindness. Quick review
Yep.
for this film. So it's very strange. Um, like I said, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. He was just obviously nominated for Best Director, and his film Poor Things won a bunch of
Yep.
Oscars last year, including Emma Stone, who's also in this film as well, along with Willem Dafoe and Margaret Qualley, who are also in Poor Things. Plus, Jesse Plemons is kind of the lead star of this film as well. And also you have Hunter Schafer as well as sort of a kind of a guest star here too. Um, as well as Hong Shou, who you might remember from The Whale, Kyle. She was like
Oh,
his
yeah,
friend, the Brendan
yeah. She
Fraser
was like
character.
the friend
Friend,
nurse character.
uh,
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you.
yeah. So yeah, it's basically it's a 2 hour and 45 minute film here, and what you get is essentially three short films. The
Right.
Death of RMF Flies, and RMF Eats a Sandwich. Those are kind of the three films here.
Okay.
And yeah, each one kind of stars Jesse Plemons. The first one really is kind of his film, and then the second one, Emma Stone, kind of leads that one with him, and then the last one is kind of more Emma Stone's film. So it kind of is effectively both kind of like their leading film. It's kind of split evenly between them over the
Yeah.
course of the three films. So you get this first story is essentially how one man trying to regain control of his life after Willem Dafoe's Richard character kind of takes away sort of um I don't really want to spoil this one because the first one I'll say quickly is my favorite of the three. It was just
Right.
utterly bizarre to me and really twisted. But you essentially have this Willem Dafoe character who has written a script and told Jesse Plemons' character what to do for every single step of his life, and then
Right.
what happens at that point where the script is sort of taken away. Very very odd. The second one is you have a husband and wife, Jesse Plemons once again, who is a cop, and his wife has been missing for months now, and then she suddenly reappears from a desert island or something, and he doesn't believe that it is his wife. And then the third one kind of follows Emma Stone more closely in this one, and her and Jesse Plemons are a pair, not a couple or any kind. And in this story, they are part of some very odd cult, which is run by Willem Dafoe and Hong Shou. So
Okay.
those are your kind of your three stories, and they all are kind of it's kind of as the title suggests, so kinds of kindness. What does that mean? What is kinds of kindness? And they're kind of what are the best I can sort of look at it as sort of morbid ways in which and different facets and different sort of selfish and cruel ways we try and help other people.
Right.
And that's the best way I could describe it because it's all some of it's very disgusting. It's Yorgos Lanthimos. There's a lot of sex scenes here. It kind of diverges into mad faith as well at points, and yeah, just kind of our own sort of twisted ways in which we can be kind to others, which kind of at the detriment and the cost of many other people.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of what he's kind of talking about with the title suggests. Now, with the problem with that, I'd say is that look, when you kind of are doing three separate films, as they kind of
Yeah.
are, some are stronger than others. It's just kind
Yeah.
of the case.
Obviously.
It's like the French Dispatch, yeah, Wes Anderson's film a few years ago. Same sort of structure. Some of the stories were just more entertaining, more interesting than others. For me, the first one was my favorite. I just thought the entire sort of thesis of that one and the way that plot progressed and was structured just felt the most, just it just felt the
Yeah.
most coherent, the best, the most entertaining for me. Willem Dafoe's Richard was just, oh, I loved that character. He was just so, oh, it was so weird, and I just loved the weird atmosphere that that first film created. Whereas the second one, I guess, is kind of more of a, it kind of gets a bit darker. I would
Mhm.
say, in a more kind of horror-y, kind of creepy aspect to it. Weirdly enough, the second one, it is kind of all a kind of a weird dark comedy as well. It has its moments of dark humor. I mean, Yorgos's films kind of always had
Yeah.
that. Poor Things was hilarious, to be fair. And in the second film, I'll say it got the biggest laugh out of the audience. Like people were like laughing for like 5 minutes straight off like one of the pieces of dialogue in that film. Um, with the sort of the weird cop character Jesse Plemons plays, and then yeah, I won't spoil it, but there's a
Okay.
very very funny scene, a very very funny cut. Uh, and then yeah, I'd say the weakest one for me kind of was the third one. I don't really know. That one for me, that was kind of, yeah, that was the one I was just like, I don't know. I was just less interested in that one. It
Yeah.
kind of, Emma Stone's trying to find this sort of this person who can heal people, and sort of bring that person to the cult. And I don't know. That one just didn't really feel very, I don't know, as engaging for me as the other two, especially the first one. But overall, look, I still think this is a good film. I still recommend people to see it. I mean, like I said, it's funny, it's utterly bizarre. It's one that I think, to be fair, on a rewatch, I'd probably get more out of because you're just kind of,
Right.
you can sort of look past sort of the what's kind of going on at first sight. But yeah, I'm going to give Kinds of Kindness a 7 out of 10. I did enjoy it. It's just one of those things where I think the structure of the story itself doesn't really, it's you're constantly kind of leaning, kind of
Yeah.
comparing them all because you're kind of just given 3 episodes of something up front and they're all like anthology pieces. But yeah, that's that. Kinds of Kindness, I'll give you a 7 out of
Excellent.
10. But now, Kale, let's talk A Quiet Place Day One, and then we'll kind of talk about the franchise
I thought you
as a
wanted to
whole.
bear
So
first.
no, I'll finish off with
You
the
bear
beer.
bear at the end. That's fine.
I'm finishing off with a beer, yeah. Right, okay, so this is the first Quiet Place film, Quiet Place Day One, which is actually a prequel to the first two, as the title suggests.
Yep.
That'd be pretty weird if it was a sequel.
I know.
And this one was directed by Michael Sarnowski instead of John Krasinski this time around. However, John Krasinski did help pen the story and some of the script,
Yeah.
along with Michael Sarnowski and Brian Woods as well. And this one stars Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. So, what you get pretty much, what does the plot suggest? Yes, the monsters
So on the
who
thin.
are,
Yeah.
who are attracted to sound, this is the moment they arrive on Earth, and they kind of have this opening explanation saying about how New York was it how is it
Eh,
has a
oh,
constant
constant. It's so
sound of
it's
90
like
decibels, was it?
decibels, which is like a constant scream. So it's at every
Yes,
one
it's like the
moment,
sound of
it
a
90
constant
decibels is being produced by New York, and it's like a constant
projected out,
stream. Yeah.
yes. So of course, a bunch of aliens crash land there and instantly wreak havoc on the city.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are following Lupita Nyong'o and Samara and Eric as they sort of try and find a way to escape New York City. But yes, I won't spoil any more than that. So Kyle, what did you think of A Quiet Place Day One?
I really enjoyed this film. I was always kind of intrigued about this film, really, because I was like, right, are
Mhm.
we? Because obviously, part one and part two, when we talk about them, are very, dare I say, kind of similar in the sense of the kind of
Yeah, there's one big continuation, really. Yeah.
one big continuous story.
Mm,
And I was like, right, what are we
mm,
getting here? Are we gonna get a bit of a genre
mm,
shift? Is that what this is going to
mhm,
be, or are we going to get something kind of similar? And yeah, we kind of,
mm,
for except for like location base, we do kind of have a kind of a very
mhm.
similar maybe not as strong in the horror aspect because
I
I
would
say
agree. Yeah.
because if this isn't your first time with them, you know
Mhm.
what these creatures are. You know what,
Mhm.
because if you've seen the first two, you know what their weaknesses are, and you know that,
Mhm.
they can't. I mean, they established very much early on that they're like, oh, these guys can't swim, and you're like, right, okay, because we learnt that in the second film, so
And
that's kind
number
of
2,
good.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know, there's not a lot of kind of relearning going on here because they kind of just assume that you know that kind of knowledge going in, or they quickly rehash it. And it works kind of well
Yes.
because it's set on an island and it's like, well, Manhattan Island, so to speak. Um, but yeah, and I think what really stands out for me this film, which I think you'll agree, is the characters of Eric and Sam. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
so much
Absolutely.
we can dive into, especially in the spoiler section for
Mhm.
this film.
Yeah.
I was in love with both of them. I think both of I mean, Joseph Quinn and the actress. I remember her name off the top of my head.
Continue on, go.
Yeah, both just fantastic. The way they kind of portray both their characters, like again, can't really say much. I have to say what I could probably say is that Joseph Quinn's character is just scared, and
Yeah.
he really can show that fear
Mhm.
in him and
Mhm.
the kind of panic attacks that his character kind of goes through this film. But no, I mean, I really liked having it in a city. I thought that was kind of cool because
Mhm.
obviously we get the first two films are very much kind of countryside-ish of the United
Yeah,
States, not too
isolated away
much.
from any sort
Yeah,
of big
isolated.
location, yeah.
Um, I liked having that. I liked having more of the creatures because I got a real sense of I was kind of actually scared of them as a herd.
Mm.
I thought that was quite
Mhm.
terrifying. Um, their cat in it, adorable, but you know,
Frodo.
Frodo.
Frodo
I
the
have to
cat.
admit, my
Yeah.
own cat's just walking around my room, and the mic doesn't pick him up, but he just meows all the time. I'm like, he would be useless, absolutely useless
Yeah.
in that scenario. But yeah, and I thought runtime again, crisp 90 minutes, and I didn't feel that I leaving that film. I don't think there's anything needs to be added or trimmed really too much. I
Mhm.
think they do a lot in that 90 minutes, especially within that character development. But I'm gonna leave
Mhm.
it at that because I'm like I can't say anything
Yes.
more without
Yes.
accidentally slipping up here.
There is a opening plot point which I've not obviously told what we can talk about in spoilers, obviously.
Yeah,
That I've hidden from when I'm talking about the plot of this film and what the main goal is as well. Because I was immediately surprised. I was like, wow, okay. Like in the first 2 minutes, I was like, right, we're
yeah.
doing
The
this.
first 2 minutes was kind of
Uh
like, oh right, okay, jumping into this.
yeah. I was like, oh wow, that's something I wasn't I know the marketing fantastic job for hiding what this is.
No, no, yeah,
And because I was kind of surprised that I actually didn't see this in any of the trailers or anything. So good job that they didn't show that in any of the
hmm
marketing. Yeah, solid, interesting sort of moment to sort of kind of go off there. And like you're saying, I do agree. I think in terms of this being a horror film and sort of a thriller, all the thrills and stuff, this isn't as strong as the first two.
no, yeah. It's
Because
more of an action
like
adventure with
more
horror
action. Yeah.
elements.
Yes, and I wouldn't. For me though, like I just don't think like even this how you the so-called set pieces are as
Mhm,
strong as something from the Quiet Place 2 or the
mhm.
first Quiet Place. I mean, the standouts in the series. I mean, we'll get to them later, and we'll talk about some of them. This one doesn't really have those really standout moments from those first two films. What it does have though is like you're saying, characters. These characters,
Oh
they
yeah,
are a fantastic on-screen pairing, like truly, they feel like genuine human beings, and just what they kind of do for each other. It's really beautiful at times. Actually, there's scenes where I've teared up,
yeah,
because of what one character does for another, and I was like, wow, this is actually. I was not expecting the film to be as sad at points or as really just humanistic at points. I was like, wow,
yeah,
this is just not what I was expecting. I was just expecting to be you know, A Quiet Place Day One, it's just explosions and thrills, and we've got to run
yeah.
to
I
get to
mean,
some place. But it's a lot more than that. Which I was like, wow, I just it really caught me by surprise, and it was kind of one of those ones where it's like when George Miller, announced he was doing Furiosa and that film came out,
yeah,
and throughout kind of lead up to that, I was excited for it, but at times I was like, oh, why didn't he just do another Mad Max? Why is he doing a prequel? But then when the film came out, I was like, wow, that's a fantastic prequel, and one that really boosts the original film. And when I saw Quiet Place Day One, I was like, okay. I mean, I really liked Quiet Place Day. I was like, I thought we'd kind of just go on with the third film,
yeah.
and then I was like, we've kind of already seen the day one in the opening scene of A
of
Quiet Place too. So I was
Play
like,
Forest,
oh,
yeah.
what's really the point? But I am really pleasantly surprised at what they did here.
It was
I
very
was,
different to
I
what I thought this film was going to be with a day
yes,
one. I thought we would have
exactly,
had a lot
yeah,
of more of a. I honestly, I thought we maybe have had some people like if you told me right, they're making a Quiet Place day one, and that's the prequel, and you didn't
hmm
tell me any of the characters, any of the synopsis, I would have thought we'd have gone
hmm
on a very more action heavy like
hmm
role like of the perspective of either like a government official, something that would lead to more dialogue or like bunkering
hmm
down, figuring out what's
hmm
happening or the lead up to it. And this
hmm
is not that kind of film, and it doesn't really. I
hmm
mean, sure, it's day one, but after
hmm
about 20 minutes, that kind of
hmm
aspect isn't really that strong
yeah,
anymore.
no, no,
You
uh-huh,
know, except for those two individuals, especially Joseph Quinn's character, that the constant fear is there. With the kind
yeah,
of the John
hmm
Krasinski and his family, they've had that kind of
hmm
however many days it's been to kind of
yeah,
accumulate to
yeah,
this new life, and that they've kind of calmed down. Where there, I do feel there was some things actually kind of missing with the whole prequely day one aspect that
hmm
we could maybe talk about it more in spoilers, I think. But
hmm
like I said, that for me, that what kind of gives this film the rating I will give it is that the characters
hmm
just absolutely elevate it so
yeah,
much, and
absolutely,
just their
hmm
story
hmm
and their connection.
hmm
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the kind of feel I'm
This would,
feeling
yeah,
about it.
with without these two characters, Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn's acting, and without the script they're given, yeah, if this was just, yeah, if this could have been a lot worse. This really could have been a
Yeah,
really like
no, it genuinely
this
could have. It
this
could have been a
this
lot
really
more
could have been
better.
like a big shrug of a what was the point of that prequel sort of
Uh
film.
huh.
But thankfully they are here, and that is not the
Yeah.
film we're not viewing an alternate universe version of this film. It's very solid. So, Kel, before we go to jump into spoilers, what are you going to give A Quiet
You
Place Day
know,
One?
if because of the characters, I'm giving it an 8. It could easily be a 7, but I
Mm,
just think those two characters just elevate it for me. I would
mhm,
rewatch this film purely just so I can see those two
mhm.
characters interact and have their
Yeah,
story. I If I want to
yeah,
watch it for the fill of those creatures that are more and more becoming some
mhm,
of my favorite modern day creatures, I would probably watch one of the first
yeah,
two because the horror aspect's more
yeah,
there. But for
yeah,
character wise, I would go and watch this one. Like
mhm,
that's where I'm at with
mhm,
this. So yeah, and a solid 8 out of 10
yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, I think the characters really did see the song, but I think, yeah, because I was kind of, the first one could have been the first two even were kind of like alien in this one because there's like hundreds of them could have been like aliens sort of thing, and I was
hmm
expecting it to be a kind of more action heavy and thrilling, but I don't know, that sort of stuff
You
never
could have
really
easily have
engaged me much.
had
Uh huh.
right. So I'm thinking you could have easily have had this been an alien sort of thing where you didn't do it as a prequel.
hmm
It's just a spin-off sequel off the
hmm
back of the ending of part two, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
That they know how
Yeah.
to counteract these creatures. New York
hmm
City, because of how loud it was on that day one, that's where a lot of them congregate.
hmm
You could have had it as an aliens
hmm
film, like an aliens type, that
Mhm.
heavier
Yeah.
action.
Sort of, yeah.
They clearly
Mhm.
went a different way, and I do think some
Yeah.
of it's kind of faltered. I think there was a really good opportunity for a really like suspenseful, really kind of thriller day one, and I'm like talking like 12 hours,
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
you
I know
know.
exactly what you mean, yeah.
But
Mhm.
we can maybe move to that into
Yeah.
the
But
spoilers.
yeah, but yeah, like I said, the emotion of it, the
Okay.
character rating really, really surprised me. Really enjoyed that, and the ending also. Really, really, really fantastic
I
ending.
love that ending.
So you love the ending. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. 8 out of 10 there from Kyle.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, okay. We're going to talk spoilers now.
Spoilers.
We'll put time codes below so you can jump ahead. Once we're kind of past the whole Quiet Place section. But yeah, we're going to be talking about spoilers for now for Quiet Place Day One. Actually, in all of them really.
Yeah.
From this point onwards. So if you don't really want to listen to that, just skip ahead. Yeah. So the plot point that immediately kind of kicks off the film is that Lupita Nyong'o's Samra is dying of cancer, and she
Yeah,
really does not have long left to
she's in
live.
a she's in the hospice.
Yeah,
Um
hospice care. I know. Yeah,
and
and I was like,
they really
what?
emphasize that
Uh huh.
not long to live because her character was a
Mhm.
poet that's what her
Mhm.
career was on, and she wrote a poem where
Yeah.
they said I'd have 2 months. It's been six. This
Mhm.
she has this poem that she reads out that emphasizes the amount of time that they said she'd have, but she's
Mhm.
kept going, meaning that it could be
Mhm.
any day. That she's past the
Yeah.
threshold of what they estimated her life would be. So you really have this
Yeah.
character that is living every second to the last, which
Mhm.
I thought is
Yeah.
such a unique
And
way of
so
putting it into this film.
yeah. So once everything kind of goes to shit, what's her plot point? Is that she wants to go back to a pizza place,
In
Patsy's,
Harlem. Yeah.
to have one last slice of pizza, and that's her goal, and that's that's actually
So
the mission here. And
for more context,
mhm,
she kind of one of her kind of nurses in the hospice convinces her to come with them as a
mhm,
trip to New York City on the promise that she
yeah,
would get a slice. So she was already
yeah,
in the city, and they go to like a
yeah,
marionette
yeah,
show where
mhm,
funnily enough the guy from the second Quiet Place is there with his kids
yes.
and his wife,
Jim Hawkins' character, yeah,
June Hong.
Henry,
Yep.
yeah,
And then at the
yeah,
end of it, she's like, "Yeah, I wanna go get a slice of pizza. That's all I wanna
mhm,
do,
yeah.
and I don't
That's it.
care." And that's it. And then along the
Mhm,
way, I say Frodo, her cat, happens
mhm,
upon
mhm.
Joseph Quinn's Er-
Eric.
Eric.
Mhm,
Yeah, sorry, say
mhm.
Eric. Who I honestly, one of the biggest mysteries for me is like, how is he in
Uh-huh.
that situation in the subway? That's why I want to,
I know
because it's
we don't
no,
get
because
any points about that,
for
yeah.
context, is that the cat kind of goes
Mhm,
up to a subway kind of walkway down the stairwell and it's flooded,
mhm,
and Joseph kind of just
mhm.
appears out of nowhere, and I'm sitting there going,
Yeah.
"What adventures have you been on, Joseph?"
I know, I thought
You
we were
know,
kinda gonna get a flashback to that, but we don't.
no,
Um,
and Eric's
mhm,
character was a law student studying in New York from England,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
there's a great kind of yin and yang where you have one character that has really accepted their death, doesn't have family,
Mhm,
knows that they're going to die no
mhm.
matter what, and you have Eric,
Yeah.
who's a fish out of water, English boy in New York. His family could be
Mhm.
alive in England. They don't know. They have no idea
I
what's
know,
happening,
I know.
and he
Mhm,
he has that drive to survive that Sam hasn't got,
mhm.
and it is the perfect mix. I just think it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
brilliant.
absolutely. Mhm.
Um,
And when it's like, when it's the also they can't they don't really there's not like lots of dialogue scenes obviously because the situation
no,
they're in,
yeah.
so the
Mhm.
dialogue sequences are very brief, but you kinda don't really need a lot of them. It's just kinda obviously he finds out who she is and then finds out that she's dying, and they have that kind of like emotional venting scene in her flat. Um, but then they obviously form this connection through like he's kind of like a lost puppy as well because he
Yeah,
doesn't really
no,
know what to
because
do, so he just kind of follows her.
there is
Uh-huh.
scenes where she's
Uh,
like shooing him off, and he's
yeah,
just
it's
kind of
like,
like
go
still
away.
just like following.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, and like you're saying, and you said this before, he's terrified, and that's such an
He's
interesting
yeah.
look at it because we don't really, yeah, we get moments in plenty of horror films where people are scared or whatever, and in this franchise too with the children and stuff, but they still manage to kind of fight their way through it. There's a bit where he's so scared he can't really move, and has
No,
to sort
yeah.
of be encouraged by Samra to move.
I mean,
And I
this
was
is a
just like, wow,
perfect.
he's
I
really
think this is
selling.
yeah. How else would
Yeah,
you feel if like asteroids come out of
yeah.
the sky and like terrifying creatures just jump out of nowhere?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm,
I think he
yeah.
has been very realistic in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. But, like, it's the things they do for each other as well, like, he is you said this to me coming out this, and it was like, he was willing to go and sacrifice everything in order to get her meds because she's in so much pain.
That's what I'm
Um,
saying is brilliant about this is that
yeah.
he really latches
Uh-huh,
onto her as an
uh-huh.
anchor, and that he felt
Mhm,
that he helping her out with this mission gives him
mhm.
purpose, and it
On
keeps him on the
purpose, yeah.
straight and narrow. And you notice it
Mhm,
where at the end of the film, right,
mhm.
where well, we're in spoilers, it's fine. That's what I
Yeah,
was saying.
it's
I
like,
was like,
"Word
no,
spoilers,
I
go
was
on."
like, so at the
Yeah.
end of the film, where they're about
Yeah.
to kind of go to, well, they're going down to the South Bank because basically helicopters are going through the New York City thing,
Mhm,
basically blaring down saying we are evacuating them off the boats. They can't swim.
mhm.
Which leads
Yeah.
to really cool like stampede scenarios of these creatures that I just was
Mhm.
like, that is
Yeah.
actually terrifying.
Mhm.
But anyway, you
Yeah.
get to the point where he realizes that he's so close to being out of this scenario, and he kind of realizes that he may not have her with him, and
Mhm,
he then has the panic again because like it's
mhm,
in that final moment where he's like sitting at the car, the creatures are there, and he's like, oh my god, right, this is that we've at the it's ended, our mission has ended,
mhm,
and now I
mhm.
have the fear because I don't know what's
No.
next. And I'm
Yeah,
like, that's
exactly.
brilliant because the entire time, because
Mhm.
he goes through some scary ass situations
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
he's like trying to save the cat, going up this kind of metal pipe where a massive creature's literally below him, doesn't bat an eyelid
Eating something.
because
Yeah.
because he's got that purpose in him, and I'm just and it
Mhm.
just leads to such beautiful moments. I mean, the
Yeah.
bar scene, um, where it's how
Yeah,
she goes back
oh, man,
to
that's the bit
her.
I teared
Oh
up because they go to Patsy's and Patsy's been destroyed because a truck's ran through it
yeah, I
for the
know.
ensuing panic or whatever, and obviously she's quite hurt. But then she goes to like the bar next door where her dad used to play piano, and so they sort of have a drink there, and he does like a whole magic trick sequence. But what he does before that is sort of slinks off and goes out and he finds another pizza place where he finds like the remains of some pizza, and then goes in and then he writes in the box Patsy's, which
Patsy's.
I was like,
It was
that's just so sweet.
so it's
It's so
so sweet.
lovely. And I
I
was
no,
just
I
like, my
really
God,
like that
what a
moment.
guy, what a
And that
guy.
was and
Hmm.
I mean, kind of near the end where you kind of realize that this yellow kind of cardigan or kind of mustardy cardigan
Hmm.
she's been wearing was her
Yeah,
dad's, and that she just
yeah.
gives it to him. And I'm like, that
Hmm.
little, she's kind of that moment where she's kind of saying like her life is complete. She's done this.
Yeah.
She's ready to
Hmm.
move on. So she gives it to
Hmm.
him. I was like, oh my heart. I was like, God. The
Yeah,
cat
yeah.
also lives, by the way, just if you want to know,
Yeah.
because I was very happy
Yeah, I
about
was like,
that.
"Really? Would the cat have lived?"
The cat impressively stayed quiet. Well, not yeah, but I would have
I mean, it
thought
got
they
them
would
in
have used
trouble a
it.
couple times.
Yeah, but I thought they would have used it as a
Mm,
gimmick where he meowed and then like something happened. I have to admit one very interesting moment
mhm,
that kind of just had there that I was a bit like, this is kind of cool, but you don't do
mm,
anything with it. Especially
mhm.
so once again, the character that kind of cameos from part two, um,
Henry, yeah. Mhm,
Henry. They're on top of the building, kind of very early on, like in the evening of the day
mhm.
one, and
First
there's
day,
this
yeah.
first day, and there's this other person who was in the Marriott show, kind of panicking, and Henry pushes
Mhm,
him up to a wall, like covering his
mm,
mouth, and
yeah,
trying to keep him quiet, and in the end ends up killing him, and his son sees it and
mhm,
kind of leaves,
yeah,
which I was like, this is a kind of interesting point to show that that classic when humanity is put on edge, people will do whatever they
mhm,
have to keep their family alive. And that's never touched
yeah,
on, and we obviously know how he ends in part two, and I'm a bit like,
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of like that goes nowhere. That tiny little
Mhm.
moment that you do because they
Yeah,
make
yeah,
it very
yeah.
obvious that the kid clearly saw it and left and was in
Mhm,
disart. And I'm
mhm,
like, well, right, thanks for
mhm,
that bit
yeah.
of kind of nothing.
Yeah,
Which was a bit
yeah.
kind of like, I don't know if they felt they were gonna have more of him in it. I don't know what that plan
Maybe
was.
there's a longer cut with him more in it, but also I think that's just obviously the sort of desperate circumstances they're put in. Like he didn't really have a
Hmm.
choice because he just kept screaming,
Yeah,
and
no,
obviously
yeah.
destroy the attention of the creatures at some
I
point.
have to say,
No, but what did you think of? Because obviously I think you and I both thought going in is that they weren't going to figure out the their attraction to noise so quickly that like I kind of thought it would be more of a frantic film
this
and
is
one where
this
they
is where my issue
uh-huh,
arises because
uh-huh,
during that first 5 minutes of the day one, Sam gets knocked
yeah,
out, and she wakes
yeah,
up an undisclosed amount of time later, and I'm a bit like,
yeah.
this is what I hate because
Right,
this is the was
okay.
so because this is why I'm so confused because I'm a bit like this is where continuity gets
Uh-huh.
annoying with these sort of films, right? Because in
Mhm,
A Quiet Place One, right? We'll just call it that.
mhm,
There's newspapers, John Krasinski, where it's like it's sound they're attracted to, like
mhm.
they figured something out, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you know, that's clearly not something that you discover on day one. I'm also
Mhm.
incredibly impressed how a printing factory with how loud those figures are that was able to print out, some loose
Yeah.
kind of plot holes there. But yeah, no, I
I
did
mean,
think this was going to be
if
a
you
much
analyze the Quiet Place films, there's gonna be a few
yeah,
plot holes for
there's gonna be
sure.
a few
Yeah.
plot holes. I did think this
Yeah.
was gonna be such more of a frantic, action heavy,
Mhm.
not in a sense of like killing aliens, but just like trying to
Mhm.
survive, and maybe the kind of
Yeah.
realization that somebody has that
Mhm.
because what I do think is quite interesting these creatures that we do see that their food source is separate. That's a wee bit of a
Mhm.
plot that they
Yeah.
discovered
Yeah.
line there that it was like wee eggs that kind of hatch and that's what they eat from. And I always
Mhm.
did have that kind of figure because they do tear through
Mhm.
everything. It's not an eating,
Mhm.
it's a tear through. Like, and
Yeah, they
a
destroy
car
everything around them, yeah.
a car goes off,
Mhm,
they tear through it the exact same way they tear
mhm,
through a human. So they're not doing it for
yeah.
consumption. So that kind of was like, right.
No.
There could have been some moments where they're running around and somebody's connecting the dots that they're
Mhm,
going maybe after ambulances first or siren,
yeah.
anything that's making
Mhm,
sirens that's probably a wee bit
mhm,
louder.
yeah.
But no,
Well,
and
isn't that
once again,
what's what happens when she wakes up, is that she sees the people who scream and the siren like, the ambulance drives by, and that's kind of
yeah, no,
why
but I'm
she
saying like
flips. But
that.
then everyone else is flipped as
Yeah, but
well.
this
Yeah.
is like this thing where I'm like,
Mhm,
I feel like I would have liked to have a full film in this day one scenario where, you know,
mhm,
I mean, the whole throughout the maybe like 2 or 3 days pass in total, depending on
mhm.
because there's a few
Yeah.
couple times
Yeah, I
they
think it's a
sleep.
couple of days back, yeah.
Um,
Mhm,
but another kind of thing that I kind of liked. What this is where my issue, not issues, but they don't tell you enough because they kind of assume that you know stuff. So day
mhm.
one, or sorry, not sorry, first film, John Krasinski shows his son, takes him to the waterfall, and
The
is like,
waterfall, yeah.
noise drowns him out, so we can speak
Mhm,
here. And they kind
mhm,
of, there's kids, very smart kids that realize that they stayed inside a wee fountain, and they're
mhm.
fine
Yes,
because the
yes.
fountain and
Mhm,
stuff. It's New York. It rains, so one night when it rains, they're able
mhm.
to have a smaller conversation because they know the sound of the
Yeah.
rain will drive out. And I'm
And
like,
the
yeah,
thunder and the
cool.
lightning, yeah.
Uh-huh, that I like because they're like, "Here, we know you learned this in the previous films, so we're just gonna
Mhm.
add the element in and not have to explain it because you learned
Yeah.
this." Very much
Mhm,
with the swimming where they blow up the bridges of New York to try and contain them because they're like they can't swim.
mhm.
But I'm a wee
Yeah,
bit
keep them
annoyed
on the island, yeah.
they did it with the silent thing, and I'm like, "You don't have to do it because it's called A Quiet Place. We know it from the title, and it's a
Yeah.
huge important part of it, so I wouldn't mind you having these characters learn that aspect again. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
about that. That's what I was a wee bit annoyed with, is that
Mm.
I just thought we would have had a lot more of the day one Havoc than we actually did.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah.
honestly,
And we
you could
kinda
probably
yeah.
compare the time of the aliens arriving and the actual Havoc to her passing out with that short 10-minute intro to Quiet Place Part 2. And it might
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah, yeah.
similar in runtime of how much we actually have
Mhm,
had in that frantic
mhm.
moment. But yeah, what about you? I mean, did we discuss the actual ending yet?
No, yeah, so the ending, yeah, so obviously, she manages Eric's character, there's a boat leaving, with a bunch of survivors, and Joseph Quinn manages to get to that boat with, Samra sort of hitting cars and distracting all the monsters until
With
obviously
Frodo,
with Frodo, he's
clarification.
got Frodo in his hands, and then he hits something, and of course all the monsters are come chasing after him. He just jumps off the pier and makes it,
Yeah,
just in time and gets on the boat. And then later on, sort of once that sort of passed, she's sort of walking around with a speaker, and then she's listening to it
she's
with
got
her
headphones.
iPod.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's got her
yeah.
headphones in, and then she takes out the audio jack, and then it's a New Dawn is
It's a
playing,
new
and
dawn.
then
Yeah,
yeah, and when the beat
with the
drops,
beat.
that's when the
Like,
monster
oh,
lands behind her with the
oh
beat drop.
no, I have to
It's
admit,
great, and then
I
it
was
cuts to
like,
black.
that was
Yeah.
solid. The way the beat
Mhm.
dropped as soon as the creature landed in the background, you didn't see
Yeah.
it, but you know her
Mhm.
outcome because of
Y
it.
yeah.
Um, I was a bit worried.
Mhm.
I'm very happy with that ending because I was a bit worried that when she was like
Me too.
hitting the things,
Mhm.
that was going to be her death, and I was
You're
like,
gonna be her death, yeah.
that's a bit too much like a John Krasinski day one, first film
Yeah.
death,
Yeah,
where
yeah, yeah.
and I kind of liked the her decision to take that was her decision to leave at
Mhm.
that moment. She had done
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pizza, she was walking around her old streets in Harlem, and she's like, "Yep, cool, I'm
Yeah.
done. Unplug, we're
Yeah,
good."
she goes on her own terms, which is great. You get very rarely see that in a horror film.
Yeah, I know, and
They go on their own terms, yeah.
I thought that was a really kind of good thing, and Eric kind of like he could tell him like he really just relaxed because he knew he was safe. For
Yeah,
how
yeah.
long we don't know because we
Mhm.
obviously know
We
what
don't
happens
know.
with Henry's character in the second film.
Yes, yes.
Um,
We don't know if he
so
was on the
yeah,
island or wherever he is.
I mean, I
Mhm.
did we discuss the fact that because you said there's a globe in it and that you can tell that you were like you thought it was only North America.
Yeah, from what I could see, I'd probably need to watch it again because there is a globe with someone communicating on the radio early in the film, and it's just labeled a bunch of cities, North American cities and Canada.
Right.
And I was those are the only places I could see. But obviously that makes sense because obviously she's obviously would be communicating with other states.
Mhm.
If you're in America, that's what you'd
I
probably be
you
doing
see,
to
because
find out answers. Uh-huh.
I wondered, right? So this is my
Mhm.
theory at the moment.
Oh.
Um, just of the way that so Quiet Place Part Two,
Mhm.
when the asteroids land, you only see like two or three, right? And day one,
Yeah.
and day
Mhm.
one, there's like hundreds.
Mhm.
I'm like, are these
Mhm.
asteroids? Are they like what the creatures are like that they're going to the
Mhm.
most sounds. So if a place has a
Uh-huh.
lot of sound,
Maybe.
more of them congregate. And I'm like,
Mhm.
because obviously the Earth rotates in the robe, I'm like, maybe they did just hit the US. Maybe it was just the way it happened, and they
Mhm.
just hit the US.
Mhm.
And um, I'd be very interested. It's not. It's one of these films that I don't need that much lore. I like getting the sick bits I do. And
Yeah.
I kind of want one. I think I would right. I want two more films in this franchise. I
Oh,
think
wow.
five would be
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
I want
Wait, so you want A Quiet Place 3 and then
I
another
want Kai
spin-off or
Place
something?
Part Three that kind of
Uh-huh.
concludes that family story,
Yeah.
right? And then
Mhm.
I want our aliens.
Right, you want the
I want our
yeah.
US government
Mhm.
figuring out what's happened, how to beat them.
Yeah.
I just an
Mhm.
all out blitz. Because I think I'm like I want an action
Yeah,
heavy one with
yeah,
this.
yeah.
This
Well,
too, and I'm
let's
like,
talk about box office for this one because obviously that determines the
yeah.
future of these things. So, yeah, in America, this film was the biggest opening in the franchise, opened to $52 million, and worldwide, almost made $100 million opening weekend with $97 million
That's good,
globally.
yeah.
That's the biggest opening of the
Hmm.
franchise, both internationally and domestically. This one, I think, also only cost about $68 million to make, so it's absolutely made its budget back in one weekend, which is always a good thing to see when you want to talk about if you want
Yeah.
a franchise to move on. I didn't know this was PG-13 in the states, but apparently it is. I think
Well,
it was a 15 here, but that's interesting.
was it? Yeah,
Um,
I can see why. Because like we said, it's not
yeah,
huge on the horror, but
it's not huge in the blood or gore.
That could
That could
help
help
it.
it. Yeah. I didn't know it was PG-13 over there.
Were
That's interesting.
the
Yeah,
first two PG-13 in the
I think no,
states?
those two definitely are.
Are they?
I think yeah, but I suppose I actually didn't really think about the violence in the film. I suppose it is less gory and less violent than those
Uh-huh.
two films, and there's not actually any swearing now that I think about it, except them saying like shit.
Well, they can't.
But
They
ah,
have to be
there you
quiet.
go.
They
I
can't say
actually,
anything.
yeah, that's true. Ken.
Maybe
um,
that will help it. Maybe that's gonna help it
mm.
get a wee bit more
Well, I
money.
mean, it's already done financially, it's financially pretty well
Mhm.
so far. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get another one of some kind. I don't know
Do you know how much the
if,
first Quiet Place film made?
uh, I don't know. I want to say it's probably like 300 million or something like that.
Yeah, because
I think the
it
first one,
came out
100.
pre-pandemic. Was it 2018 or 2017?
Yeah, uh, uh, yeah, worldwide made 340 million on a budget of $17 million. So it did
17.
really
Wow.
well. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The second one obviously is really hard to determine because that is when the like cinemas just reopened after COVID.
Mhm.
But even still, that film made $300 million
Oh,
worldwide.
really? Part two?
So yeah, and that was obviously that was May 2021. So that was when people were still
That
sort
was
of
really
iffy on going back.
impressive. Yeah.
So that is actually really impressive. We're probably gonna get another one of these. I really do want to see the conclusion, like you're saying, Kyle, to the family
Yeah.
story because it's now been years since A Quiet Place 2 was filmed. Those kids have aged up massively now. You're gonna have to do a time jump.
Well, that's. I
Absolutely
mean,
sort of get around that.
we
Yeah.
were
Mhm.
discussing that. So I only had watched these films
Yeah.
for the first time maybe a month ago.
Mhm.
And I literally
Yeah.
did it one night. I watched the first one. Second night, I watched the second
Mhm.
one. And I was saying to
Yeah.
Lucy, come out. The most jarring thing is that the boy has a growth spurt, and
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
literally like it just continues on. Like there's
Mhm.
no time jump whatsoever. They just
No, it's the next day,
you
isn't
know
it? Yeah.
there's it's literally the next. I don't even think it's the next day. I think it's literally like 20 seconds later. There it's like
Yeah.
because it's literally it's them leaving the basement after they shotgunned the
Yeah.
two creatures that they
Yes,
teased at
it
the end
is,
of the
yeah.
first one, where like Emily Blunt
Mhm.
was like shh, shh, and I was like cool. I was like
Yeah.
that's so. To be fair, I thought every single film I've actually really enjoyed the ending to. The
Yeah,
Quiet
they
Place
want really
1,
solid endings.
like the Quiet Place Part 1, where they kind of realize what they did, so she kind of gets her
Mhm.
like a little, like her little hearing aid ready, and Emily Blunt just goes
Yeah.
like she doesn't
Yeah,
care
it
about the
gets the
sound,
shotgun loaded up, yeah.
and I was like,
Mhm.
that's solid. The
Mhm.
second one, I've now blanked.
Cillian
It's
Murphy
like
starring one. Mhm.
it's amazing because it's got Killian Murphy in it. There you go.
Yeah.
And then obviously this one where it's just boom land, and I'm like, oh, solid. It's like, oof, that's so good.
Yeah. Oh, the yeah,
Like,
though
oh,
that
I
one
love
that
it.
one that one kinda ends similar to the first one, you know, that you're saying they make the radio broadcast, out so that if anyone turns on that radio channel, it will be able to stun the creatures at
I'm
least.
gonna look up just to see if I'm like can remember how it exactly ends. 'Cause
No, it's
it's
no, they're on the radio station. It's like a race to get there, is it not? Because the alien is
yeah,
is
and
trying
then
to get
they
them.
do it,
Mhm,
and then I'm a bit like, but
mhm.
what happened? Um,
They
Oh,
kill the creature,
it's
what
just
more do you
no,
want?
no. It
Mhm.
was just I remember it's like it was the symbol. It was the kind of shot of the hearing aid hanging off the microphone that I kind of
Yeah,
liked.
right, okay.
That's what I kind of
Yeah,
liked about it, and it was just how it's like weaponized the entire
mhm.
thing. Right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, for me, like, if we're gonna talk about our favorites, I don't know why people don't talk quite a bit about Quiet Place Part 2 as much as the first one. For me, I think it's a step up, a real step up. Like,
I
I just
agree.
think yeah, I just
Yeah,
think
no.
the suspense and the thrills of it are just so exciting, and that entire opening sequence is great. Their day one with them doing the baseball match and
Yeah,
stuff, I thought that's just a fantastic sequence. As well as Cillian Murphy like learning like the sign language for dive, and then how that
yeah.
comes back into play in the film. Just the whole thing when like they're Emily Blunt is it? They're trapped in like
It's like
the
a
locket
silo.
thing.
It's maybe like a rice
Ah,
silo
silo.
thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm not
Mhm.
entirely. I know exactly what you're talking about, and like, cause her
Mhm.
son got caught in a bear trap.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Kelly Murphy's kind of laid out this kind of like very like see when I watched it, do you know what I kind of got the vibes of?
Uh-huh.
I got the vibes of Bill
What?
from Last of Us.
Oh, from Last of Us, yeah, yeah.
Like
Mhm,
especially the game where it's like he's got all these traps laid out around it and you're
mhm.
trying to avoid all these bear traps.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like that's
Uh-huh.
kind of what I had in my head. I really liked. I mean, I love two, and I do think two is my favorite. I
Mhm,
have to say that I really
mhm,
love the character moments in the first film, especially with the
mhm,
girl
mhm.
and her like being really
Yeah.
convinced that her dad's not actually like too fond of her because of how
Mhm,
the gut wrenching first scene of that film where the youngest
oh,
boy gets
yes,
taken,
yes.
which
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah,
surely not. I was like, surely not.
yeah.
I was like, I've never seen these films. I had no idea, and I was like, nah,
Mhm.
that kid's fine. He's gonna be. They're gonna kill off this shit, and then boom,
No, they
and
kill off the
then
kid. Mm.
because I mean, he was stupid for picking up the batteries. Just saying, he was a tit.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, you probably should do that, yeah.
wasn't gonna last long. But the way the kind of the
No.
daughter throughout it really thought that he properly resented him, and then at the end
Mhm,
saw that he had this workbench trying to fix.
mhm,
He spent countless hours trying to fix it, and
mhm,
the final sacrifice that he does when he goes signs out,
mhm,
"I
yeah,
always loved you." I was like, "That's solid," and
mhm.
I mean, and I was like, "That's great," and I was like, "I don't know how they can top it about John Krasinski." And then Killian Murphy's
Mhm.
character came in, and
Kill her face, how you do it.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was
Mhm,
genuinely convinced. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about John Krasinski. I thought he was like
mhm.
really good in like an emotional way. Kelly Murphy, man,
Yeah,
holy shit, he came out of nowhere and was like
yeah.
this hermit of just lost and depression,
Yeah,
and he was
yeah.
just like, you know, genuinely couldn't care. He was like, yeah, leave. I don't want you here. And she's like, no, like you
Mhm,
have to, And then the
yeah,
daughter leaves because she's convinced that there's something at the water, and the way that he's so
yeah.
like reluctantly just goes
Mm,
with her,
mhm.
like
Yeah, and they
reluctantly
also
he's
deal
like,
with,
I'll go find her. Yeah,
like, another faction of
they do. It's
human
like you're saying
survivors with
at the boat
people
scene.
at the dock,
Yeah,
which we obviously we've not really seen much more of this franchise post this, in this world. So, yeah, it was just I felt the second one just kind of expanded the world more, and just when it came to the thrills of it and I just really, really enjoy the second one. It's just like goes and goes, like it's
see,
so quick, it's so
I
fast
remember
paced. Yeah.
like I
Uh-huh.
remember just saying during the second one because, like I said, I mean, I probably see a trailer for it when it first came out in like 2021 or something. I was
Mhm.
sitting and then I was watching my girlfriend and I was like, it's the scene where they're on the boat, like after that, and then one of the boats starts drifting off with the creature on it, and I was just like, oh Christ, no.
Mm,
It's like, oh Christ. She's
yeah,
like, what?
yeah,
And I was like, oh, I know what's gonna happen. And then like 10 minutes
yeah.
later, it happens, and she was like, how did
It
you pick up on that?
happens.
I was like, oh, I
Well,
was just like, as soon as I saw the boat drifting off, I was like, I know physics doesn't work like that. Water physics just doesn't happen
yeah.
like that. But I just in this universe, I knew exactly where that boat was going.
Yeah,
Um,
of course it's gonna happen.
but then
Yeah.
like it's great because then you get the kind of experience of like those humans have clearly been fine for maybe like a year or two, and
Yeah, we
that
don't know
they're
how long they've
so
been. Yeah.
unprepared for when one shows
Mhm,
up that they panic
mhm.
again. And I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, say
yeah,
just be quiet and you're cool.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
because they've been so
No.
used to it again, it's like day one for
Mhm.
them again, but they panic.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I'm
I
like,
know
I
those
was like,
phases,
I
yeah.
really like that kind of idea where they got so used to it that they forgot about it, and
Mhm,
it was like a oh
mhm.
shit moment.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, Kel, why do you rank the 3 in order then? What are they
Second's
gonna
gonna be
be?
my favorite. Second will definitely be my
Mhm.
favorite. Um,
Okay.
I will put. It's a real struggle, man. To be honest,
Yeah.
because
Mhm,
I think as a complete horror film, the first one's
mhm.
better, but the
Yes.
characters of Day One, man, are just
Mhm.
so. This is the issue. Like I'm ranking them, but like they're all eights and above in my mind. Like this is I
Yeah.
think like I'm ranking really good films, so don't break me. But I will probably say 2, 1, 3, um, just because I'm appreciating that it is a horror franchise, so that's probably why one
Yes.
gets pushed a bit more above 3.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
probably go 2, 1, 3.
yeah, I would have to agree. I think that would be right too. They are it's very tight,
It's
especially with
so
one
tight those
and day
last two.
one. I think. Well, I just saw the Quiet Place Part Two was PG-13 as well. Oh my God, these Americans, man, they're just like
I mean, I
their
was trying to
rating
say
system
I
is
don't remember the
they're all
second one being
PG-13. That's crazy.
as was the first one PG-13.
They're all PG-13. I'm shocked. They're all rated
Oh,
15 here. I thought they were all. No wonder they do so well. I didn't know they were all PG-13. I thought it was all um, R-rated films, but clearly not. America just poof, got
they just love to come off of it.
more courageous than us. Anyway, man, I kind of wish Gonzalez here because he has some sort of beef with John Krasinski,
Yeah,
and I was excited to get to the bottom of it, but well, I
I
guess
really
that'll be
don't
for another
understand
time.
what this beef is, and
Uh huh.
maybe I will understand one day. But I was quite
Yeah.
surprised about how. I just feel he's a. I do you know what weirdly I'm still seeing that
Uh huh.
um If is still airing in cinemas.
Yes, yes, F is still
I'm
going,
like
yeah.
I'm like, why are you taking great films out early and you're leaving
Mhm,
like
mhm.
these ones just
Oh, we
sitting
didn't
there?
talk about that, yeah, but A Quiet Place Day 1's coming to digital at the end of July,
Oh,
for
shocking.
some reason. For some
Shocking.
reason.
That is honestly just I don't understand it. I
Literally,
don't
just
understand why you
leave it
leave.
there till the
Yeah.
end of summer. Like, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. Okay,
Anyway,
you're obviously gonna lose screens to bigger releases like Wolverine, Deadpool, Wolverine, and Twisters, and what else coming out? Despicable Me 4.
Despicable
But
Me 4, that's true, but
like, you're still gonna have screens. It's not gonna all vanish. Like
yeah,
you're still
no,
gonna be played a few times a
exactly.
day.
They can just,
Uh-huh.
even like
Mhm.
for a while, for like a good 3 weeks, the Fall Guy was just playing
Mhm.
at one screen a day, like one time slot, one screen a
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
And I was like, I
yeah, yeah,
imagine
yeah,
some
yeah,
people like would still like.
yeah.
I knew somebody like
I
last week
noticed
that
that
went to see it.
actually here anyway. Like you're saying, King of the Planet Ape still gets a couple show times a day. Fall Guy still gets a couple show times a day.
Yeah.
Furiosa still gets a couple show times a day. They don't just. It's just because a big film comes out doesn't mean I don't understand
Oh,
studios anymore. Like I don't understand
they
why they're
seem to be
afraid
giving
of just
that
like
American Horizon a few screenings a day, which I'm like interesting.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's a shock that it's getting so many screens anyway.
Force me. You
Um,
would have to force me to watch that 3 hour piece of film.
Mikhail, the sequel's coming out in August. This part two is coming out in August.
I'll watch
Oh,
the collective 12-hour cut that these four films will
yeah,
be in
Jesus
one go.
Christ. Right. Anyway, I will do a quick review for the Bear season 3. This is
Yes,
spoiler free,
thank
because
you, because I've just
Kyle, our
started
dear
watching
friend,
it.
has not watched it. He's just started watching it. Yes. So I won't spoil it much, but yes, creator Christopher Storer has returned with oh my god, Jeremy Allen White, Eben Moss, and Io Edebiri. And yeah, I can't even spoil the end of season two because of Kyle. But if you've watched season two of The Bear, you know the cliffhanger was left on, right? And sort
Oh,
of the
there's a
position
cliffhanger.
that
Ah,
there's a
ja,
cliffhanger, Kyle.
ah.
Yes,
I'm
if you've
pre-spoiled
watched the
now. The
the
cliffhanger.
Bear
Thanks.
season two, there is a cliffhanger that one ends on. And yes, this falls immediately on, almost immediately on from those events. Now, the reason I wanted to touch on this is kind of hard when I can't really go into all the plot points that all these characters are on at this point in time, but I will try my best. Now, look, I have been really kind of stunned at the sort of the reaction of this series. I mean, if you go on IMDb, it's like, well, each episode is well reviewed enough, but it's been kind of review bombed, Kyle. Kind of just like how Acolyte's been
Yeah,
review bombed and The Boys has been review bombed. Very interesting how this is all happening. Like people's weird frustration over TV shows
yeah.
recently. Now, with The Boys and Acolyte, those are two very different circumstances, which I don't really want to get into. We're dealing with culture wars and people not understanding what your show has been about for four series, just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, which boggles my mind, because apparently fans of that show just didn't realize that they were making fun of right wing politics and culture war stuff the whole time, and also for some reason believe Mother's Milk was recast because they're blind. Anyway, that's a different story for when we review the Boys series four when that's all done. Now with this, I think it's very odd because by the time you've got to season three of The Bear, I feel like you've understood what this show is. You
Yeah.
understand it's a very character driven show. It's a show really riding on the emotions of these people and their flaws. And also what you if you haven't gathered from the first two series that series one and series two and now series three structurally and the way they're directed are all stylistically a little different from each other. You know, series one's a bit more standard, a standard chronological
Mhm.
series, which kind of just follows the sort of this high frustrating restaurant in Carmi trying to turn it into something else, trying to save his brother's business. To then series two, which I won't spoil, obviously, Kyle. Series
Thanks.
two, however, takes a different approach, which focuses more on bottle episodes and focusing more on one character per episode for a lot of it, right?
Oh, okay.
And having a whole entire flashback episode midway through the series, which is hailed as one of the best episodes of the entire series. So, series one, series two, different approaches to the story. Series three, once again, takes a different approach. This, I will say, is a much more low key series, and maybe this is what people are getting annoyed about. However, that also has a few couple bottle episodes that focus primarily on just one or two characters for the most part. But yeah, overall, I think in terms of, I guess, if you're wanting, I don't really know because the Bear isn't a plot heavy show. It's not The Boys where you
Mhm.
have so many storylines and you've got these high stakes. It's emotional high stakes, but it's not like end of the world high stakes. It's
Yeah,
no, it's
yeah.
not political high stakes like House of the Dragon. It's not galactic stakes like Acolyte. It's not those types of stakes. It's not plot driven. So I
It's
don't really understand what people
beefsteaks.
were yes, if you want to say that.
Yeah,
It's
no.
it's emotional stakes, it's character stakes, and I don't really get it because for me this has been a very consistent series. This has been very
Yeah.
consistent with the show. It's focusing on these characters, it's focusing on their relationships, it's focusing on their flaws and their mental health issues and where the business is at now and the problems the
Yeah.
business is facing. Some story points aren't resolved from the second series, and that is deliberately so because of the characters you're dealing with, which I don't
Right.
understand. Carmi is a stubborn,
Yeah.
a mentally fucked up character who's clearly got high anxiety, OCD, anger issues, right? And expecting a scenario that was happened in series two to be resolved within this series so quickly, it's like you haven't been watching who this man is. It's very odd that people have sort of clicked off of that. I don't get it. For me, I actually, if I were to talk about highlights for, I think episode one, which has very little dialogue. It's all mainly story through images and using like this one score throughout the entire thing as this entire like almost like opera or old school silent film where,
Right.
like I'm saying, it's just the score and you're just using these visuals and it's all edited and where Carmi is now and understanding why he is the way he is. Um,
Hmm.
that's what the first episode really is. It doesn't really tackle what's just happened at the end of season two. We then carry on with that, and it's not handled in the way that I guess most I don't know shows would immediately go off and do the normal thing because these are very real, flawed human characters to me. Um, that was a highlight for me. I also really liked episode 8. I won't even say the title of the episode because I
Yeah.
think that's a spoiler.
Thanks.
Really liked the focus of that the two characters in that one and Napkins. I think Napkins is the highest rated episode of the series of this series. Napkins, once again, focus. It's a flashback episode, focuses on one character. Just really touching, really emotional, and just it really just puts into context why these characters are here and what they're doing here. I loved series three. I really did. I love this show. I think it's been consistent for 3 series now, for 30 episodes now. I just love these characters. So human, just so flawed. I love the way the show is sort of edited and it's like it can create such stress and anxiety so quickly. And yeah, I just love the dynamics between all the characters.
Yeah.
There's a very funny cameo in season three, which I wasn't expecting. So look out for that, Kyle. Which I was like, that's funny that this person's here, but okay. But yeah, I don't really get it. I think this show's great. It's completely consistent for me, and I love it. I love The Bear. It's still one of my absolute favorite shows on TV right now, and I'm really looking forward to season four, which I'm sure comes out this time next year because they pump these out really fast, Kyle. So which
Yeah.
I love. Because you're not left 2 years like House of the Dragon. You're like, oh shit, what happened again? I've got to watch a recap or something.
Literally me. I had to rewatch season one. I
Yeah,
was like, I
literally,
can't
yeah, with
remember.
House of the Dragon. So yeah, if I were to give a score for this, I would actually give The Bear season three a 9 out of 10. It's not a 10 out
Ooh.
of 10 because there is one plot line which is sort of started in this series and then is kind of drawn out a bit for me and also isn't resolved. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. I guess you're hanging on to that one for the next season. But I
Yeah.
was like, you kind of drew it out a bit
I'm
for me.
looking.
But
I'm
anyway,
looking. I'm looking forward to it.
uh,
I'm gonna try and crack on
mhm.
with season two tonight. So
Yeah, good.
at this rate, end
I'll,
of the week I'll probably
I'll be
finish season
interested to
three.
see because I would love to hear your opinion of it because I do think there are some just absolute standout episodes here, and I just love it. I just think it's great. Anyway, that will wrap up
Yeah.
today's show. So thank you, Kyle, very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Yes, yes. Yes, on next week's show, because Maxine is out, which concludes Ty West's X trilogy, we'll
Yep.
be talking about the X trilogy plus a review for Maxine. So that will all be on next week's episode. But look, we just gave our opinion on A Quiet Place, Day One, Kinds of Kindness, and The Bear Season 3. But at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.